Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not bad at all, buddy. So, what have you for me today?
Ken LaCorte with Elephants in Rooms discussing the timeline of immigration issues in the last presidencies. Yeah, last few presidencies. We watched a little bit of it before, and we didn't know this was going to be the one we're going to do today, but this one seemed to be the best of all the options we had.
Yeah, it was probably the most balanced on this issue. In fairness, it was probably the most balanced because he's very logical. He lays everything out in facts and figures, so there's very little room for adding extra fluff to it, no matter what side aisle you're on.
Pretty much no one wanted millions of undocumented migrants rushing the American border. Republicans didn't vote for it. Democrats didn't vote for it. Yet in 4 years, nearly 10 million migrants crossed America's southern.
That's a lot, and he's correct. There isn't any constituent in the United States who said to themselves, you know what I'd like? I'd like my resources to be extracted from me to give those resources to non-citizens, like anywhere else in the G20. Here's Starmer in the UK. Ireland gets it because they get to the UK and then just head over the border from Northern Ireland into the Republic of Ireland. The people are saying, no, 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 we don't want this. This is bad. And they just can't seem to hear it.
Wow. Yeah, as I said, no one's listening to the public these days.
They just don't care. The ideologues, and especially in the United States, where we have a two-party system. Germany with the AfD coming up 50%, but still not getting to be a part of the government. It's not going well. Like, everybody's getting into their camps and they're just othering the other people in horrible, horrible ways.
No one seems to be coming up with a decent solution either, policy-wise. I was thinking of Denmark and Switzerland and so on. Seem to have come up with a very good policy around immigration, but no one seems to be talking about common sense policies either.
Well, you can't let the other people have anything good because they're other. And so you end up with very horrible policy decisions that get switched by the other team when they get in power. I'm going to write up all these orders, and then the next person gets in and they're like, I don't like those. We're going to do a whole new setup.
The sad thing is, not only is it that damaging to your country, it's also damaging to the people who genuinely want to emigrate to your country. Because if the goalposts change every, say, 3 or 4 years, like the United States or any other country, if we change, it's very, very uncertain, both for the country as well as the people who are trying to genuinely get to your country, like doctors, nurses, engineers, and so on.
So the assimilated Latino community is the harshest on this as well. They say, we worked hard to get here, we assimilated, we did all the things, and then the new people come in and they get to extract the resources that now that community itself is earning by attempting to be a part of the American dream. It's bad outcomes all the way across. And then again, we're most harsh on our own.
That's the entire population of Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston combined. The surge happened because of deliberate choices made by American politicians. But why? Politicians survive by knowing exactly what their voters want. They study polls, they watch the news, they listen to supporters. So the elephant in the room is this. How did America's political leaders veer so dramatically off track, essentially handing Donald Trump a lifeline back into the White House? Hey, I'm Ken LaCorte. This isn't a partisan take on immigration or even politics, but an understanding of how that crazy situation came about. Because only by looking fairly at uncomfortable truths can we actually learn from them. In the next,
I think it has to do with single policy platform. When that is the thing that is most contested and you are on the side that feels like the more correct side to the populace, it didn't take into account any other kind of policy that the individual getting elected was going to do something about, as long as he did the thing about the one
that
thing
he promised to do.
Yeah, I promise you I will. When a politician says, I promise you, and then they do in fact attempt to follow what they got elected to do, it then pisses off the other side like even more. Well, he said he was going to do the thing, but I don't now like the way he's doing the thing. Well, the man got elected, whichever man
he got elected, and yeah, as I say, he got elected as president under that and other policies, but this is what got him the second term in the White House. Was the immigration issue.
What got him the first term too, and he'll go into that.
Few minutes, you'll discover how the history of illegal immigration set this stage, how Trump's first term shifted the landscape, and how Biden's overreach turned the issue into a political boomerang. Okay, so America's immigration debate obviously didn't start with Biden or Trump. For the last few decades, both political parties have danced around illegal immigration, each looking for opportunity and each afraid of getting burned by voter backlash.
Also, birth rate is a huge issue here, and being able to pay workers less money to perform the same tasks that citizens of that country can perform. In this case, the United States.
birth rate issues? What do you mean around there?
Okay, so our birth rate in the United States right now is 1.6, and it's going down. So the way you fill the gap is by ensuring that you have more people coming in that can also make babies, but they also immediately improve your numbers. And if they're going to assimilate, even better. If they're not, that's going to be an issue. So that's how.
But do you think the birth rate numbers are going down because of economic reasons or environmental or so on, or what reasons do you think those numbers are going down?
Inflation. Young people cannot afford to have a job, get a house, and make babies. You can't do all the things anymore. Not at a base income. The inflation rate is absolutely insane. From the early 1900s to now, we're up at 2,500% from what it was. And you can even see the huge difference from 1985, when there was approximately $3 trillion in play, to now there being over $22 trillion in play. While individuals in the United States are making more money per hour, the money is not worth as much. So all the money goes into the Fed, and the Fed then distributes the monies down in the forms of loans. That means they get access to paying for assets at a cheaper rate than when it gets to the worker at the bottom tier. They just can't. And the money's not backed by anything except for the fact that it's the petrodollar. And with OPEC and Iran and other countries who are like, well, you know what? How about we just let them pay for it in yuan? And then if the federal dollar loses supremacy, then that's a huge issue.
Because I see there with an awful lot of the pundits, say on certain side of the aisle, telling young people they should be having more babies. It sounds like it's a good headline, by the way. It makes a fantastic headline. But in reality, as you were pointing out there, young people just physically cannot afford to have kids. If they can afford to have one kid, they're lucky, let alone 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Well, and the system also incentivizes making babies without support. So as opposed to having a father figure in the house, what happens is you have Big Daddy government that takes care of all the things. And that again takes money out of your wallet, out of your bank account, wherever it is you store your dollars or your euros or whatever.
Plus, I think people tendency not to have kids if they are unsure if they'll have a roof over their head as well might be an issue.
Kind of important to have a roof over your head if you're going to have a baby in the house as well.
Because I think it's very unfair to kind of put the blame on the young people all the time for not having children when it's the older generation who've put the young people in this kind of position where they do not have the financial resources to have kids, even as much as a lot of them do want to have kids.
Started way back in 1913, and we'll get to that at some point in the future as well. Here we go.
I say it was started from the late 90s, you could say, in my own country, where the price of living just has gone absolutely through the roof.
Oh, we were looking to try and get an apartment in Dublin just to see how much it would cost, and you just can't get an apartment. You can get either council housing or a $2 million flat, functionally. That's what you can get.
Yes.
It's one end of the spectrum or the other. Either the county is going to hand you the flat, and then they're going to make money off that because they're also allowing immigrants at maximum dollars per hotel room per day for a residential space. And they're going to take 30,000 euros over 1,100 euros to rent out the spot.
I understand. I understand the issue. I'm just talking about young people who live in the country not being able to afford the cost of living to have kids.
And your GDP
to boost up those numbers.
Your GDP is weird because of all the multinationals you have, but that's not the earning rate of those who are workers in your system.
What I'm saying is, I think across all the G20s, by the way, an awful lot of young people don't seem to have hope either of their situation getting better over the next couple of years.
Both parties had mixed motives. On the Republican side, many leaders feared the racist label if they pushed hard for border crackdown. They also got subtle pressure from corporate donors who wanted cheap labor. I mean, a lot of businesses, agriculture, construction, service industries, they benefit from a steady flow of workers who will work for lower wages.
Part of the issue with this is we have a thing in the United States. It's a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United, and it allows lobbyists to generate monies to lobby for a cause. The cause is generally a corporate cause, but in Citizens United, it says that corporations can function as individual people for purposes of free speech or First Amendment rights. What means the people with the money can pay, and with their money, they can't say, you better do the thing that the widget people want you to do. But if you get the money from the widget people, you're pretty sure they want really good deals for their widget programs.
Wasn't there a guy there recently elected? Well, actually elected twice as your president. He's on his second term now. That promised to do something about all that?
It's tough. That is a very, very difficult one. That one's almost as difficult as that Section 230 in the Federal Communications, where social media platforms are acting as creators, but they're using the platform side as a defense to regulate the things that are happening.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think, by the way, either side is ever going to deal with Citizens United. That's never going to happen. As long as there's that much money in play.
Oh, for
I'll be
sure.
honest.
It's a
Not
lot.
a hope, especially when I was just watching the coverage of Trump flying over to China there recently, and he brought over 30 CEOs with him on Air Force One. I'm just saying, all of those billionaires probably will make sure that never happens either.
Well, they benefit from it, and they have the 0.1% monies to ensure that those things continue to happen. You have independent agencies that are supposedly under the umbrella of Article 2 executive branch that are in fact acting independently, and the president, whoever's in charge, cannot exert control. That's a problem as well. They can't hire and fire as they see fit. The people get in there and there's nothing can be done.
I think that's the main issue around this immigration, despite all the flashy headlines, is a lot of businesses, especially in California and others, relying on, as he's pointing out there rightly, people working for lower wages to increase the profit.
The 4 states with the most immigration issues are the 4 states on the southern border: California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And until they started busing them other places that said they were sanctuary cities and functionally broke those economies, that's when it started to become a real big deal. And he's going to bring that up later as well. Until it got flashy on the headlines, like you were saying, we're like, oh, it's not that bad, except that for massive sections of the Southwest, it was not great. In fact, it's horrible. Without a certain kind of visa, it's also difficult to get a job. As an American citizen, you couldn't get a job. But with an H-1B, where you could get paid less to do the thing, they would pay the people who were going to work for less money.
Yeah, obviously, that's the way businesses make. As I said, there's no sentiment in business.
No, there's the bottom line. You better hit it.
Yes, that's it.
And the corporate board better be happy with their returns.
Oh, yeah. The board will dump your ass very quickly if you start losing money.
And we can get into who controls those boards at some point in the future.
Oh, yes. That'd actually be an interesting episode to do.
Got a couple of things I've been working on for that, so we'll get to that. But let's get back to this for now.
On the other side, Democrats had their own balancing act. Latinos were an essential part of their political base, and so they feared an immigration crackdown would cost them votes. But many Democratic voters, especially union and working class Americans, they didn't want lenient policies that brought people into the country who would essentially lower their own wages. Historically, both parties saw how the Balancing Act blew up in the face of a Republican governor back in the 90s.
The issue there is you want to make sure that you can at least do the best for your family and your space and your group. When people come in and can undercut you, there's nothing you can do about it, especially if the government's saying, well, no, we're just going to bring them on in. It's going to be okay. You're like, it's not okay. Give me the chance to vote this right on out. And the thing you're bringing up now is a massive, massive issue for the Republican side, because they saw what happened with this next fella when he tried to put in those hard-nosed policies that actually...
Oh, yeah. He got absolutely, got
eviscerated. But he was following what was functionally federal supremacy. He was trying to get the state that he was the governor of to come in line with all those policies as they were written. Now, it was before 1996 when a lot of the changes were made to 8 USC, the immigration code. But check this out.
Wilson of California rode to re-election with a landslide by supporting Prop 187. It was a ballot measure denying state services to illegal immigrants. Voters loved it too. It passed by nearly 60%. And for Republicans, it was a huge win.
What he's saying is that the citizens of the United States who are currently California residents will get access to the resources that they're paying for. Understanding I pay more than 50 cents per dollar in the state of California to an entity that is actively working against the needs, wants, and desires of the constituency of the state. This includes Second Amendment violations and violations of the Fifth Amendment, the Takings Clause, and reducing my rights and passing more regulation than any other state passes in 1 year than other states pass in 25 or 30 years, based on a supermajority in both our Assembly and State Senate. It's uncontrolled. Wow. Again, they're actively working against the constituency of the state and taking our resources. Ooh. And beyond that, this is even worse. Because of the way we bill things, especially on the medical side, we are taking money from other states to support our failed policies.
Do you think there will be a change again in California? Do you think they'll vote in more Republican in years to come? Will they always continue to back the Democrats?
The state of California is super strong with unions, and the unions are super in support of the Democrats, and there's a lot of money there on the table. The other issue, well, so in the state of California, whoever the top two are at the end of the primaries, regardless of their political affiliation, right now we have Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, who are the top two frontrunners for the governor for the state of California. They're both Republicans. If they get number one and number two, then we will have a Republican governor, provided bad things don't happen to both of them, because the state is so opposed to it. Political stuff like you can't run because we say you can't run now, even though they've been part of all the debates and the whole process and the function.
Well, okay. So that's kind of put a lot of people. So they're trying to hinder both guys or go after one. In what way is that working out?
We haven't gotten through the portion where we decide which two are going to be running against one another. Dark things have happened recently to those who want to speak freely in public. And we actually, our episode 50 is specifically on Charlie Kirk. So yes, the possibility is out there. If somebody wants to change things, they could go down that route. I hope, beyond hope, that something like that doesn't happen. But I don't know in this climate right now what may or may not happen if we have two Republicans as frontrunners that are running against each other for the gubernatorial race in the state of California.
Is that because of the temperature and politics has been turned up so much over there that is always going to be a possibility going forward?
Once the thing happened to Charlie Kirk, I don't know what's on the table and what's not on the table at this point.
Well, I know before Charlie Kirk got killed that there was a shot on Trump as well. But the temperatures being so high over there at the moment.
Oh, it's a pressure cooker. It is a massive pressure cooker right now, yeah.
So that's always going to be an issue now, is it going forward? That has to be always at the back of their minds.
Well, so there's a Democrat in San Francisco as the mayor. And some of his policies on the homeless issue and take care of fentanyl and all that stuff, really, really good. Except he was almost physically attacked. And in fact, one of his guards was physically attacked. It's a pretty big story here on the West Coast, where the mayor's guards were just assaulted to the point of felony battery. So it seems like everywhere from mayor on up, it's just, apparently it's cool to be doing that. We have no respect for the process now. Not only that, and the big one, we talked about it before with like election interference stuff. There's never going to be zero. But if you can't trust in the sanctity of your elections, it's a bit of a problem. Because at any point somebody can say, well, you stole the election.
Yes.
And it might be hyperbolic. It could, in fact, be hyperbolic because there's never zero.
But once that is put out there, people will start, as you were saying, question all elections going forward. No matter how heavily regulated they are, they'll still question it.
Which is why they're trying to do the SAVE Act and make sure that only citizens are voting.
But do you think the temperatures have been turned up since, say, 2016 onwards when it comes to elections, to the point where the normal guy on the street doesn't believe, no matter, even if the SAVE Act passes, there'll still always be a question going forward?
I think there's going to be issues, and I think that is going to be cited, and we don't have time to get into that can of worms right now. But we can go over that in the future. I would love to go off divergently on that for the next 45 minutes. We ain't got time. Let's get back to the immigration thing.
At least for a little bit, because it quickly backfired big time. Prop 187 became a rallying cry for California's Latino community, who saw it as an attack on them. And soon, hundreds of thousands of Latinos registered to vote, nearly all of them Democrat. And the result? Within a few years, the reliably red state of California, and it actually was back then, it turned permanently blue.
When we get our immigrants and they register to vote after they get their citizenship, most times they're Democrat until they're fully assimilated into the function, and then they kind of pick to go either way. But initially, it is a massive uptick for the Democratic Party to get as many people into a voting booth as possible, because they will, generally speaking, vote Democrat. And part of the reason for that is because they're going to vote to extract more resources from the system, as opposed to earning it the way that it is envisioned in the United States, that becoming part of the American dream and picket fence and the 2.5.
But for the vast majority of them do assimilate quite well into the United States, do they?
Oh, the Latino community is really, really good about it. They love being here. They love being United States citizens. Most of them are Dodger fans, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's Los Angeles.
What about other communities? I'm just going to use Chinese, Indians, and so on.
So California is unique, and we have the highest Asian population. And for the most part, the Asian Americans in California are pretty good about assimilating and being part of the American culture and all that stuff. It's refreshing. It's a good thing. We are the most diverse state. And I don't think diversity is your strength. We just happen to be that way. We don't have any single community with a plurality in the state. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but from 1985 at 85% white in the state of California, we're now at about 35% white. And it's a pretty even split across the board, with Asians being, I think, just over 20% of the population of the state. But then that doesn't take into account the illegal immigrants we have in the state of California. We can't count them. They weren't vetted. A lot of them got in. That portion of 10 million, we got at least 4 million of them. I don't know where they are, but they're certainly somewhere, because they didn't end up in other states.
Do you think that's why election became, as you were saying, become such a hot button issue, you could say, in the last 10 plus years?
Well, in Southern California, non-citizens were getting elected to official positions in local governments. That's a huge indicator there's a problem.
Ooh, okay. That is a big issue, actually.
Republicans never recovered, and today California is basically a one-party state. Wilson's name became a cautionary tale for Republicans nationwide. Tough immigration policies might win short-term, but the long-term fallout could be tough. Now, you fast forward to Barack Obama. He smartly wanted to both look tough on illegal immigration, yet not anger his Latino base. He earned the nickname Deporter-in-Chief for deporting 3 million illegal immigrants, more than any other president, but Latino activists knew that really wasn't the case.
It's a case of fudging numbers. They decided to calculate things a little bit differently to make sure that it looked good. He wanted to show that he was tough on something.
Yeah, so he was playing fast and loose with the immigration numbers?
Well, if you really want to lie real good, you use statistics, right?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, well, yeah. See that on both sides of the aisle, by the way, over there. Even there's a couple times when we were doing stories here, and once you dig into the numbers, you realize that both sides are a bit fast and loose, I would say.
And that's because a lot of those record deportations were actually a statistical sleight of hand. Under earlier administrations, people just turned away at the border weren't usually counted as deportations. Obama's team decided to count turnarounds as formal removals, and that gave a much inflated deportation figure. That tough on immigration stance allowed Obama to introduce DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. It was an executive order he did that allowed nearly 1 million young people who were brought to America illegally as little kids. It let them stay, work, study without fear of deportation.
So the problem with that, the children under DACA would get education and would get advantage and an ability to function and learn and
assimilate into your society and so on, yeah?
But the issue is that with that child came parents and siblings and aunts and uncles who stayed here to herd that individual who is in the DACA program. So we're giving up money for one individual under DACA, but then we're supporting at a minimum 2 and sometimes 3, 4, and 5 more people with all of our generous social welfare programs.
Oh, I've looked into how generous the social welfare system is over there. And compared to what we give out in Ireland, generous is definitely a term I wouldn't use, but you know, every social welfare system is different economically. You cut your cloth to your measure. But outside of all of that, do you think DACA was a good idea or a bad idea?
You can't disconnect the child from the parents.
Right.
So what happens is we end up with the poverty trap. So if I get Section 8, which is housing, for you it'd be council housing, SNAP benefits, which are food, and then EBT cash, which is cash, and full 100% health care. So if I'm paying for that for, say, 3 people, then generous welfare programs are costing the constituents a massive amount of extracted resources. Did it work? I don't know. What's Trump going to do with the DACA thing? I don't know. But it ended up costing a lot more money than the assimilation that it was supposed to cause as an outcome.
Yeah, it looks like it was a good idea on paper, but as you say, in reality, it didn't work out that well.
Right, and there's a 14th Amendment issue with anchor babies, in quotes.
If you give birth in the United States, is it an automatic citizen or not?
Well, that's what the 14th Amendment issues they're having in front of the Supreme Court are right now. Remember we were looking up the immigration things for Switzerland, where Switzerland said, because you're born here, you are not necessarily a citizen. You still have to go through all the hoops.
We have the same laws in Ireland. If you're born in Ireland, you're not an automatic citizen. We got rid of it in, I think it's 2003, 2004.
Because you're not subject to the sovereignty of the state because your parents are not citizens.
But a lot of European countries, by the way, if you're born within their borders, you're not automatically granted citizenship. I think most European countries are like that.
Politically, this two-step was pretty smart. It allowed Obama to look tough on immigration publicly while still scoring points with immigrant communities and progressive voters. Still, when you look at polling numbers from back then, only 37% of voters approved of Obama's overall handling of immigration. Now, that was driven mostly by Republicans, but even a majority of Latinos who, over the time, had started to become a little bit more negative about the increased number of illegal immigrants.
Right, because they were extracting resources. Again, an issue.
Do you think it was down to the fact that they were annoyed because they went through the right way and these guys had just hopped over the wall?
Correct.
You think it was as easy as that?
Yes, for sure. It's as easy as that. They got a way better deal than I did, and they're just going to be handed the franchise. That seems patently unfair. And the reason it seems that way is because it is patently unfair.
Yeah. It is very unfair for, as was pointed out there, that these people went through years of work to get where they are. And these guys just hop the wall and get all the same resources.
The bureaucratic backlog was insane, and they still went through the process. They wanted to become Americans. They wanted to assimilate. They wanted to be a part of the American dream. They wanted the win. And other people were getting the win by just being handed the franchise. And that stings, 100%.
Yeah, it does. It does. It actually really would annoy anyone, really, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. That would really, really rub you up the wrong way.
And this started a shift by both parties away from their base. Democrats had shifted a little further left than their base wanted to see, and Republican leaders were very quiet or even mixed on the issue, creating a huge opportunity for a political candidate to fill that void.
Because Pete Wilson got burned in a very, very hot fire over Prop 187.
Yes, he got absolutely. Yeah,
again,
it didn't end well for him.
No, and again, in an attempt to come in line with appropriate federal supremacy laws and 8 USC. That's what he was trying to do. And ensure that the resources that Californians produced, especially because of the state franchise tax board at 13%, they were just burning that money out. They were just taking our money and just giving it away. And the Republicans, the Democrats, every 60+%, that is almost unheard of for a bond measure in California to pass by. Almost unheard of. Yeah, that's big yes. Over 60%, yes. Big yes. And then once it went into effect, he functionally got removed from office based on the Latino community, especially in LA County and Southern California, saying, no, you're targeting my community in a very bad way. When what he was doing is saying, if you're not a citizen, I don't want to give you the resources. Not only do I not want to, it is flagrant of me in a bad way to steal the resources from one to give it to the other, right? Peter and Paul.
Yes. Wow.
And of course, eventually one did. Donald Trump came out onto the political scene in 2015 in large part because he wasn't cautious at all about immigration. As Republican leaders tiptoed around border control, Trump took a super different approach. He was inspired partly by Ann Coulter's book, Adios America, and he went all in from the very moment he descended on the escalator coming down to announce his presidency. His quote saying that Mexico wasn't sending their best, they were sending criminals and rapists.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
It wasn't polite, it wasn't nuanced, but it resonated with millions of voters who they believed that politicians had for decades just ignored a growing problem.
On top of that, the media fluffed him up. They're like, oh, look at this silly man. And they put him up on stage and he just bowled him over. They gave him a little bit of time, and eventually he became a serious participant on the Republican side into the primaries.
Yeah, I remember when he first announced it, everyone was laughing. And it's a couple of months into it, I put a financial bet on it myself that he would actually win that election, because you could see the momentum building. You could see people want it. He was saying all the right things to his audience, and he was really building a momentum behind him, which worked out very well. MAGA is still around to this day, very strong part of the Republican Party, no matter if they want to admit it or not. Still a big giant voting bloc.
The legacy media, platformed the hell out of him.
Did it?
Because he was a character. But sometimes that charisma and that I'm saying the things people want to hear in combination will get you the vote.
Yes, and it worked out in the first term, and obviously it worked out again in the second term. But I think MAGA itself, as a movement that he built from scratch, you could say, has benefited the Republican Party as well. If people admit it or not, it's part of them now. They helped him win the House, both houses, the last time, especially in a lot of close races.
The House of Representatives and the Senate, for sure.
Hardcore immigration stance completely set him apart from nearly every GOP candidate. Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, others, they warned that the harsh rhetoric would alienate Hispanic voters. But Trump didn't listen, and he doubled down, promising a big, beautiful wall along the southern border. I mean, the idea was mocked relentlessly by the media, who couldn't stop talking about it, and Trump. And look, I worked in the news during that campaign, and I saw it, and it was pretty clear that it was the single most important issue that separated him from the other Republicans and helped him win that nomination. When he won and he started to implement some of his policies, the backlash was immediate, it was intense. Most of the media hated him to begin with, and they painted his immigration policies as cruel and inhumane. Kids in cages, migrants supposedly being whipped, crying politicians and celebrities at the Mexican border. They flooded television screens and dominated headlines. And
see that particular picture there right now of AOC crying on that fence? Do you know where that picture was taken? By the way, it wasn't on the border. You'll see there now in a moment. Now, see that particular picture? That picture looks like it's at the border, doesn't it, down Texas?
It doesn't look like it's particularly anywhere, actually.
Yeah, but she said it was at the border, blah, 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 you know, fences. A certain detention center in Texas. It was actually, believe it or not, taken in way up north in California, but literally well over a couple of hundred miles away from the border, not where she was saying.
But
that particular...
It's 1,500 miles across. It's a lot.
Yes, a bit of a distance. But I remember all these pictures going around at the time, and a lot of them turned out to be, he rightly so, he pointed out, fake, which really helped Trump, by the way, at the time. It really backfired on a lot of the legacy media at the time, making up pictures like this.
Well, they were scrambling.
They were trying to find a narrative bad enough to embarrass him. I don't know why they had to make up stories. It's just the way they were doing it, as you said, just to make it embarrass him in some way, but it didn't work. If anything, it really kind of brought his base together.
It propelled
more
him.
So.
Yeah, it propelled him.
Yes.
Politicians and celebrities at the Mexican border. They flooded television screens and dominated headlines. And look, I could get into the accuracy and the fairness of that coverage, but that's not the point here. The point was that it was effective. Not with Trump's core voters, but with many moderates, and they're the ones who often swing elections. And more importantly, Democrats believed those optics alone would help crush Trump politically. They looked at polls, often influenced by how the questions were framed and often commissioned by advocacy groups, and those polls reinforced that same assumption, making Democrats confident that Trump's stance was politically suicidal. But while a lot of Americans didn't like the concept of child separations,
the child separation thing had been a thing that had been going on for years. And the separation functionally works like, are you going to stay here? If so, then X happens. If you're not going to stay here, we will get you back to wherever immediately. Right?
Yeah, but as you were saying, look, this is the way immigration normally works, no matter what country you're in. Do families get separated? The answer is yes. That's just, logistically, that's what happens. I know people want to go around it, but that's what happens. Parents go to one area of the detention center, the kids go to another area. Sometimes the mother and the kid goes to one area and the father goes to another. But yes, families do get separated. That's just logistics. It's going to happen. Is it bad? That's the only way you can do it. You know, that's just down to logistics. Now, what happened in a lot of these centers is a lot of them were privately run companies, third-party companies, Did they make a complete dog's ear of it in a lot of cases? Some of them did, to be honest. They did. Yeah, as you can see there, they made a complete dog's ear of it. But the vast majority of the companies did it the right way as well. So take the good with the bad, as they would say. But unfortunately,
there was never an intent to cause issues or emotional distress. It was a bureaucracy thing. We need to process people to move them here and there to do the thing. Under USC, we have an obligation to do this. And to do that, sometimes you had to separate a kid to make sure they had shots and vaccines and all the other things. If they were going to be released into the public, they needed to have some of those vaccines, or if they didn't have them, they could get very sick. So there's a lot going on there, right?
As I said, there's a lot of moving parts, and do mistakes happen in every immigration service? Yes, no matter where it is in the world, by the way. Is it distressing? Yes, but unfortunately, there's no way of making an omelette without breaking a few eggs. And I know it sounds very harsh when I say that. But I understand the United States, like many countries, are struggling with their immigration issue at the moment. They're trying to find a balance between being humane and doing it quickly.
And not extracting resources and ensuring that...
Yeah, as I said, there's no easy way of doing it. There isn't.
Right. We want to treat people humanely every time and in every instance.
But they do try. They do try. But not picking on the United States. Sometimes the United States kind of goes gung-ho into a lot of these things. Or as we say long ago, half-cocked. And they kind of jump before they look. And when it came to a lot of these immigration enforcements, they put the cart before the horse. They arrested thousands and thousands of people in some cases. And they're detained a lot of people, I should say, not arrested. And did they have the proper facilities in place to do it at the time? I remember during 2016 and during that 4-year period of Trump's first term. And to be honest, there was a lot of it. They ran and detained lots of people without having the proper place to put them. And they made I wouldn't say they intentionally caused harm, but they made in some cases, a bit of a dog's dinner of it.
I think when there's a violation of the law, you do the best you can to rectify it. And if they're in violation of 8 USC, it's an offense, right? They're subject to the criminal sovereignty, even if they're not subject to the sovereignty of the state as far as who they owe allegiance to.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is you still have to treat people with some small bit of decency as well. You can't just throw them into, as you can see there, into a big holding room and here's a few blankets. You know, you should be better than the countries you're trying to be. Okay, I'm tripping over my word. What I'm trying to say is you should treat people with a small bit of common decency.
Right. But did they show common decency by coming illegally into a country when they knew they weren't supposed to be there without going through the appropriate port of entry? Right. At what point is the criminal's action the responsibility of the individual who's committed the crime? At some point, that's the thing, right? You've committed the crime.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. A lot of countries are struggling with that ideal. Where does the criminal give up those rights of being treated decently?
Well, where do you put the door?
Yes.
Is the door on?
I think every country is struggling with that at the moment.
The case.
Not just the United States, by the way. I think other countries are struggling with that as well.
I understand that. All right, here we go.
They still supported stricter enforcement overall. The numbers were still driven more by Republicans, but by the end of Trump's presidency, 80% of Democrats wanted more, not fewer, resources to go police the border. But by that time, the major Democratic candidates were going all in on the other way. None supported building a physical barrier, and instead their policies were more about pathways for citizenship, or decriminalizing border crossing, softening the force at the border, and offering illegal immigrants more services.
So offering more services is more money. Softening the force at the border lets people in that probably shouldn't be let in because they won't get vetted. If you decriminalize border crossings, then you don't have a country because you don't have a border. And pathways for citizenship means that those who went through the process before are going to feel disenfranchised because the next set of people are going to be just given the franchise, right? So, go ahead.
But when vetting does happen and a person does turn out to have a criminal record, what happens in that process?
Bye. See ya. Gotta
So
go.
now, do you think if a person becomes a citizen, say they go through all the process and then get arrested?
Then they're still a citizen. That's fine.
Yeah, that's
You
fine.
you don't lose your citizenship because you've later committed a crime. If you've gone through the whole process.
But what level of crime is there? Is there a scale of crime, or is just any criminal record?
It depends on what the current guidelines are for DHS. I don't know what they are.
Right.
If you got a speeding ticket in 2011, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But if you have a violent crime, and I think it mostly focuses on drug trafficking and violent crime, you cannot gain citizenship if that is the case. On paper, right?
On paper. Okay.
Not fewer. All of these beliefs and some miscalculations by the Democratic leadership set the stage for the Biden administration. And it might not have hurt them as badly as it did, except for one man whose name isn't Donald Trump. I'll explain that in just a second. First, though, let me talk just a bit about the politics of illegal immigration, specifically among that Democratic leadership. Now, I'll keep this part short because it's an important part of the equation, but it's in the realm of things that I can't document with a poll or a statistic. Okay, so politicians often lie.
If you're going to talk about a politician who might have a distant relationship with the truth.
Trust me, Bill told a lot of porkies in his time.
Well, I would say he has a tangential relationship with the truth in many occasions.
Well, I, in all fairness, I will give Bill Clinton a bit of a, I won't say a pass, but a lot of your presidents are very selective with the truth, is the best word to describe it, the last couple of decades. Is that being generous?
I met that man.
A bit harsh.
I met that man when he was running for president in Columbus, Georgia, of all places.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sat down and had tea with the fellow. We had sweet tea, and I think the American, super charismatic guy, seems super on the ball, super smart. I don't know that I voted for him that go around.
He was. I heard he's a bit of a fondness for the ladies, as they would say.
A bit, but he was on point. Had a poignant discussion with them, and he.
Oh, he's very charismatic. He was very. Yeah. I remember him actually when he visited Ireland and the whole lot. Very charismatic guy. You know,
it was a super interesting experience to meet that specific human. Yeah.
Very
interesting. His wife wasn't there. Funny enough.
Yeah, she was probably too busy covering his backside. Sorry.
Couldn't stop yourself. I get it.
Ways that no one can prove. I mean, when one stands up and says, "I have deep love for the Albanian American community," I mean, it's tough to know if that's real or if there's a political calculation to something like that. And even when I have strong suspicions, I can't read minds. But it's fair to ask, what's really behind those who want to open up the border? I discussed the concept of trying to signal support for Latino Americans, something that's routinely and publicly stated. Now, that bet worked pretty well for a long time.
And it did. So a lot of this has continued on to all kinds of virtue signaling in all avenues. So if I virtue signal and I'm a victim, I score more points. And that way my voice is more heard. Except it's not, and it doesn't make a point poignant because you're signaling a thing that may or may not be true. That's why sometimes...
Yeah, but well, in fairness to the Latino community, they have integrated quite well into American society. Just thinking of Ruben and others. But do you think that it's a bigger issue? Is it more the Muslim immigration that is the biggest issue at the moment, or is it just immigration in general?
I think it's immigration in general. Our resources are being excised from us at a rate that is unforgivable. Right? They're extracting our resources, and then again, like I said before, we have a government that is actively pursuing policies that we did not vote for. And this is one of those big instances of it. They're actively working against the desires of the constituency. That's unacceptable. It's not why they got voted.
At the moment, all three branches are controlled by the Republicans, and are they bringing in laws to curb what happened in the last couple of years?
We're having an issue with the filibuster and the Senate not having 60 Republicans, and we're not getting things to the floor as Republicans. And the we that is the Democrat side is fighting against it all the way. So they're digging their heels in for sure. And they don't want things to go to the filibuster because the Republicans have, I believe, 53 seats, plus there's an independent out of Maine, which will generally vote in that direction. thinking that's how it is. I'm hoping. Check me if I'm wrong. Send me a message. So
yeah,
if they put it on the floor, the Democrats don't want it, then they have to filibuster. And as soon as you're done filibustering, it'll go to a vote. And if it's 50-50, then the VP who will vote in the direction the Republicans want, it will get passed. But at 53-47, if they go to the filibuster, then it will get passed. But if it goes to a Senate vote, it's got to be 60 out of 100, and they don't have 60 votes. So as much as they want things to get through, things go through the House of Representatives all the time. They get to the Senate, and then they die, either in subcommittee, committee, or on the floor. They just don't get through the process.
Yeah, that's the problem with a two-party system, really, isn't it? It's everything is such a tight vote, no matter where you go. It's
well, the New York City election.
As I said, we were talking.
52.78% is what Mamdani got, and he won.
Yes. Well, in fairness, the guy underneath him only got 41%, so there's a bit of a 9-point difference there. But the problem is with a two-party system. Remember, we were talking about this through history. There's a reason why a lot of countries got rid of the two-party system naturally over time, is just to avoid issues like this, I think.
100%. Here we go.
Do you think the United States is capable of ever having a third party or fourth party even?
We have libertarians, but they're for less government. So they're not going to, right? So the thing that they want is less involvement of the government, but that also means that they have less involvement overall and they're less popular because they're not voting the bread. So they're not voting to extract resources and give it to the bigger size community that wants the things that the other people have worked for, right? So when you mix immigration with a welfare state, that's non-functional.
But are there more underlying reasons to want more undocumented immigration? Well, many Democrats would say there's an obvious reason: compassion. I mean, we are a nation of immigrants, and even the most jaded person would look at some kid living just a few miles south of the United States in a one-room house.
We're actually a nation of settlers that was bulwarked by immigration, but immigration to the point where those people assimilated, and there wasn't a welfare state where they took resources from the people who were already there.
But I think the point he was trying to say is immigration worked out well for the United States for the first part of its history. But as you're saying right now, do you think it's damaging to United States immigration?
If it's not done correctly and we don't appropriately vet them, 100%. 100%. We have functionally a welfare state where our resources get taken from us to be given to those who did not contribute to the system in any way.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that argument so many times. But what I'm trying to get down to is, do you think it will change in this administration? Do you think any of those rules are going to be changed?
I think we're having a problem with observation of the rules because it keeps getting jammed up in court.
And do you think it's because of this particular president, or is it just people are just so anti the other, they won't look past themselves and do the betterment of your own country?
I think the latter is more true, for sure.
Yeah, I can see that, actually.
The dirt floors and see something that's just cosmically unfair about that. And usually, that compassion didn't have a political cost. Declaring your Vermont town to be a sanctuary city, that sounds great on campaign ads, and there's little downside, especially in far-flung cities. After all, half of the nation's illegal immigrants live in the 4 border states: California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. But we also can't deny a strategic calculation Democrats have banked on for decades. Immigrants and their kids tend to vote Democratic. So if you let millions in and eventually legalize them, that's millions more future Democrats. Now, politicians never quite say it that bluntly, of course.
So that's putting the thumb on the scale in a big way.
As you said, no one points that out, obviously, but that's the intention behind a lot of this, is to swing the votes one way or the other.
In the two-party system.
Because most of these elections are so tight because of the two-party system that 100,000 here and there makes a massive, massive difference overall.
They talk about paths to citizenship or comprehensive immigration reform or whatever euphemism they use that won't spook people, but most people understand the game. Again, those are things that are difficult to prove, but you can't just ignore them and pretend they're not a factor at all. Okay, So all this leads us to the Biden administration, where the political miscalculations finally collided with reality. On his very first day in office, President Biden didn't waste any time. He was determined to prove that he wasn't Trump, and immigration was his top target. With a few executive action signatures, he stopped construction on Trump's border wall. He tried to freeze deportations for 100 days, and he scrapped the Remain in Mexico policy. The
Remain in Mexico policy was really, really good. What it did was, if you got to Mexico, you could apply for citizenship in the United States, but you had to stay in Mexico because it was considered a safe place to stay while you were being processed or vetted. Because the other option was, if you got to the United States, they were compelled under USC 1225 or 1226 to detain you until the process was completed, and they determined if you could become a citizen. It became a lot easier just to cross the border and be here illegally.
Right. So that policy remain in Mexico and apply from there. How many people actually went through that process, I wonder?
I don't know. But it kept them out of the United States and taking our resources.
Okay.
For that duration until yes, you can come in, or yes, you're an asylee, or no, go back to from Mexico to wherever you're from. Or
and you think the US would ever bring in something like, I'm just thinking of other countries like Norway and so other countries that have a quota type system where, say, Texas, for instance, is looking for 50 extra doctors to make up numbers. And if you're a doctor, we'll fast track your citizenship. Right. They don't have any of those kind of quota systems in place anywhere in the United States, do they?
So if you are a doctor or if you're a professional at that level, there are special passports and visas and things that you get where you can pretty much go to any country, right? That's a completely separate system, right? So if we need, what would be more important would be like electrical engineers or certain kinds of specialty construction or that kind of thing.
Carpenters and so on.
Right. The people that can do the work with their hands to help fill the potholes in our infrastructure.
What I'm trying to say is, do you think it would be beneficial for the United States, not just individual states, but as a country, if it operated quota type system?
Well, if it was regulated and vetted, for sure. That would be a better.
It'd make the process a lot easier for everyone involved, wouldn't it?
But because anybody would know, these are the skills I have. I'm a carpenter. I have 9 years of experience.
Yeah. Say,
whatever it is.
I'm going to. Sorry for picking on Texas again, but say Texas is looking for 100,000 laborers to build, I don't know, pipeline from Texas all the way up to Washington, for instance. They could, put that up and say, if you have welding skills, you get this visa. And do you think those quota systems would ever come into the United States?
We already have that. That's what the H-1B visas do. Yeah, that's.
I understand. I know you already have it, but do you think
as a pathway to citizenship, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, it's already in place. That kind of system's it's already in place. But the problem is we're just so overwhelmed by those who are here illegally that it overshadows all the other forms and types that we have.
And do you think these numbers are going to be reduced in under this administration?
Which numbers?
The people who are in your country illegally. Do you think those numbers are going to drop like a stone?
They are. We have a lot of self-deportations. And so we have the 2nd and 11th district are in competition with the 5th and 8th district under 8 USC 1225 and 1226. One says you must detain. The other one says you may detain. So the states that have sanctuary policies don't hold them. But the states that don't have sanctuary policies are now starting to detain anybody they pick up who has committed a crime beyond just violations at the misdemeanor level of 8 USC.
And after these 4 years, how much you think he will actually accomplish numbers-wise yourself?
The numbers are going up every day, so I'm not even sure. It is so hard to tell.
What I'm saying is, in realistic, outside his press release, what do you think the final numbers would be? Say there's 10, he pointed a figure there of 10 million illegals came in the last 4 years. Do you think out of those 10 million, would he get rid of 3 million or 6 million, or will it be somewhere in the middle? 5 or 6 million, I think. And get rid of about 50%
of that 10 million, but we have a whole lot more than that, probably about 20% of our population at this point.
So you're saying 70 million in the United States is illegal?
Yep.
70%, 1 in 5 people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So 1 in 5 people in the United States are there illegally.
Yes. The misreading of the 14th Amendment.
Right. And where do those numbers come from?
From the data. I'll pull it up. I'll get it for you. But it's massive.
Right.
It is
so
massive.
70 million people in the United States are illegal.
60 to 70, yeah.
60 or 70 million. And is that spread all across the United States, or is it more concentrated
mainly in the
southern states?
Yeah, mainly in the southern states. Or the not the south, but the southwest.
And okay, and those 4, so say we'll take the 4 that he just mentioned there. How many people live there?
A lot. There's 40 million in California. But we'll get to the numbers. Like, let's get back to the video. I know where we're going with this. We'll pull up some statistics and we'll put them in there. Yeah, I understand where we're going with this. So let's get back to the video. We're going to finish this thing up.
Sent a crystal clear message to anyone thinking about heading north. America was open again. Almost immediately, the numbers exploded. In Biden's first year alone, border crossings soared to 2.4 million encounters, the highest ever recorded. Biden's defenders tried to cite external factors like poverty or violence or climate.
That's your buddy Alexander Mayorkas right there.
No, I'd be perfectly honest with you. This is my first time ever seeing that gentleman.
You're kidding me. Oh,
actually, no, it's not. I recognize his head, but you know, you have to remember I'm not from the United States, so
yeah.
By the way, during that time period, during Biden's administration, I was really, really busy with a thing called work after COVID-19 and so on.
Keeping track of officials in the United States government really wasn't your thing at the time. I get it. Look that guy up.
Yes.
He is a ton of fun, that fella.
Okay, and by the way, for those of us from Europe, can you give us a quick rundown on who and what he was at the time?
So he ran the DHS for Biden, and he said that the border was super, super secure when millions were crossing the border. No, the border's secure. Then they would show him pictures. These are the 12,000 people that crossed the border yesterday from this one spot. How secure is the border? Well, we're working on these policies. And he's like,
so he was head of the Department of Homeland Security at the time. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so if the border was super, super, super secure, like you were saying, how did 2.4 million people get through the border? Just
in that 1 year?
Teleport or?
They did. They clicked their heels. And there was no place like the United States. Yeah, there was no place like the United States. They got their ruby red slippers and they just tapped the heels and boom, boom, boom. There they were.
Right. And Jordan, how was he there all 4 years of Biden?
I think he was there for the majority of it. I'd have to look at the actual time. So, but he, I'm sure, didn't want the DHS director that was in there when Trump was in office for 45.
Yeah. And who was that?
We'll have to look it up. I think it was Tom Homan.
All right.
It might have been.
Because I know he's
wrong. I might be completely wrong.
I remember during his first term, he was doing a lot of musical chairs at the time.
He's pretty good at that. He likes that game.
Change anything, but those problems existed long before he took office. The only real change was the country's immigration policies. Now look, I need to make a quick side point about immigration numbers though, because they're super convoluted. I mean, no one knows how many illegal immigrants are in the country. Some of that's because we don't know how many have sneaked in, but a lot of it is because of intentional government actions that intentionally make those numbers confusing. By the way, if I screwed up any of these numbers, I'll correct them in a pinned comment below.
We'll check his pinned comment and then we'll do some research on our own as well. So
yeah, because it does 70 million does sound a bit, I would say, exaggerated a small. Say even with the open borders that Biden had in those 4 years.
No, it's not just the open.
That was 10 million.
It's not just the open borders. It's birthright citizenship should not be based on an anchor baby. If you were born here but not sovereign,
all right.
But you were not held to the sovereign of the state because your parents are not citizens. That individual who wasn't a citizen then procreates on American soil. That individual also, by birthright, should not be a citizen because the parent wasn't a citizen.
Oh, that's where the 70 million is coming from. Okay, now I understand. Right, it wasn't just 70 million crossed the borders. It's the 10 million plus the people who are already here kind of scenario. Okay.
Yeah, plus procreation, plus the millions that got in before that were coming in.
But saying that 1 in 5 Americans are there illegally,
Yeah, 1 in
They
5 or 1 in
normally,
6.
they normally would vote Democratic in a lot of ways, wouldn't they?
Yeah, oh, for sure. The majority of them would, yes.
So if that's the case, that's a big voting block.
Yeah, pretty big. Pretty big.
If that's such a big, if there's 1 in 5 Americans are illegal, do a lot of them have the right to vote or not?
They shouldn't have the right to vote at all, but they can and have gotten into elections. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Okay. And
again,
how does that work then?
It's just voter fraud. We don't know where it is exactly. We tried to ferret it out.
Obviously,
but you never know.
Obviously, I'm just talking from my own. When I go down to vote, I have to show them a picture ID and get my little ballot paper and fill it in and put it in. Is that the way it works? Do you think that works in the United? Is not the way it works in the United States?
We don't have voter ID in a lot of places.
Right. So you just rock down. I'm Joe Smith. I'm from such and such address. You just handed the ballot, and that's it.
In California, the big way they do it is they compare the signature on the document to your signature on record. But how they got on record in the first place is strange. So you can be a non-citizen in the state of California and get a California driver's license. And that enacts all kinds of federal aid and all kinds of other things.
Obviously, because that's picture ID and so on. Yeah, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we give non-citizens California driver's license, it means they're available for lots of federal things because they'll get generated Social Security numbers and all kinds of other things once they have that legitimate ID, because they take that legitimate ID, shove it into the system, and then federally they start getting money. So California is extracting resources from the rest of the country to pay for our illegal immigrants. That's just the way that it is.
And does Texas do the same thing? Because it's obviously they have an immigration issue as well.
They try not to, but some people slip through. Like people are
but how do they pay for their illegal immigrants themselves?
I'm not sure.
I presume they use federal money as well, do they?
Well, they would have to.
Yeah. Otherwise, they would go broke, to be honest. If those figures hold true, they would have to get the extra money from somewhere as well.
Yes, they do.
And if you're digging this, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so take changing the Remain in Mexico policy I mentioned. What that means is that someone who may have had an almost non-existent chance of getting asylum could come into the country and be allowed to stay here while he was waiting for his court hearing.
Understand that it can take up to 5 or 6 years to get an initial determination, which you can then appeal to the Immigration Appeals Court. And then from there, you can appeal it to the appellate level in the regular district court system. Right?
But is the Trump administration putting more resources into the system to kind of speed up the process?
Well, the big beautiful bill put a couple $2 billion in that direction for sure.
But
try and get more magistrates.
Has it started unblocking the system? You could say, has it helped?
The time is reduced, but not by much.
Oh,
but we've had a lot of self-deportations as well. So it's kind of hard to figure the numbers. Like, why didn't that person show up? Maybe they're gone. Maybe they're not gone. We don't know.
Yeah. Is there any kind of follow-up on those numbers of people self-deporting? Or is it just...
We don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Well, a lot of times they will literally drive back into Mexico and not come back. And if you have paperwork that shows that you're a Mexican citizen and you're at the border and you say, look, Mexican citizen, they'll be like, back to Mexico. Cool. See ya.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. And then what about El Salvador and other countries? How does that work then?
Well, they'll let them south. They'll let them into Mexico, generally speaking.
And then they can off they go, as they would say. Right.
Once they cross that border, we're not too concerned about it. Just as long as
what I'm trying to say is if they self-deport themselves like they should, does that open the door for them to come back and reapply into the United States legally?
Yes.
Okay.
If they self-deport, then they can in the future apply. Yes. Generally speaking, provided they don't have a criminal record of a drug or violent nature.
Yep. Yeah, because the funny enough is that's the way our system works as well. Very similar. If you get a final letter to get on the plane and leave Ireland, you can reapply later on down the road. But obviously, like the United States, if we have to pick you up and put you on that plane, you have no right to ever apply for it ever again in Ireland. It's probably the same in the United States.
courts that were backlogged by about 4 years. So there were about 1 million people who weren't considered illegal under the Biden administration because technically they were waiting for their hearing, even though many of them would never show up. But now, for instance, that status under Trump has been revoked, so now they're illegal again. So look, if you want to play games with immigration numbers, they're so squishy it's easy to do. And both sides do it all the time. And that allowed, for instance, years the Biden administration to just pretend it wasn't happening or it was exaggerated.
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
And for the first couple of years, most of the media played along. I mean, if you watched Fox News or followed conservative media, it looked like an ongoing invasion. But if you watched other outlets, you might have hardly even seen it at all. One conservative media watchdog group looked at the coverage in August 2021 when border encounters had shot up to 200,000 in just a month. The national news networks that month, ABC, CBS, and NBC, they covered it combined for a total of 6.5 minutes over the entire. But one man eventually made the entire media pay attention. That was Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. In April of 2022, he started busing migrants from Texas to cities throughout the United States. He started with Washington, D.C.
Like when Ron DeSantis sent, was it 50 or 100 immigrants up to Martha's Vineyard? They lost their mind. Ooh.
One thing I've always noticed, I'm taking a shot at the left-leaning politicians and people at the moment, is they love helping others as long as it's not on their backyard.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've seen it even so many times in my own country. I just thinking of different protests. They don't mind helping the poor, I would say, as long as it's not around them.
Is that Sinn Féin?
No, actually, it's just politicians in general. By the way, I'm not even going to pick on one party. They all talk a good game until it's on their doorstep, you could say. And by the way, that goes true across the world. But mainly taking a shot at left-leaning politicians is they talk a very good game until it's literally on their doorstep.
Well, that's when the suicidal empathy actually tightens its noose at that point.
Oh yeah. We don't mind the homeless issue as long as not on my lovely lawn, as they would say.
And then expanded to sanctuary cities around the country, mainly New York, Chicago, Denver, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. Abbott's actions may have been political theater, but it undeniably changed the conversation. In 2 years, he had sent out over 100,000 migrants to these cities, and it forced these mayors to grapple with the same chaos that Texas border towns had dealt with for decades. Let's look at one example. Eric Adams, New York City's mayor. He quickly changed his tune from being a strong supporter of sanctuary cities to saying the surge would destroy New York City, as immigrants from Texas and then other areas started flocking there.
He said that in a council meeting, I believe,
yes,
that it would destroy his city because they were running out of resources. They had budgeted X amount, and it would way over.
Bear in mind, I remember watching a piece about him. Bear in mind, this is the same mayor who said, we're open to everyone, which is, great. He got him elected and, patted everyone patted him on the back of, sanctuary city and the whole lot. Until, as was pointed out there's a couple of thousand people just landed on your doorstep. Then it becomes a bit of an issue.
I can't fit 40 people in my apartment. It's just not going to happen.
Yes, yeah.
It's definitely. You breathe in, I breathe out. It's
turns. Bit of an issue, by the way. Bit of an issue.
Just a bit.
They estimated 175,000 immigrants came to New York with a 3-year budget cost of $12 billion. Before too long, this wasn't
yeah, that's a heavy hit.
That's $4 billion a year.
Well, and on top of that, why is there money for illegal immigrants in your system that way in the first place? If someone is an illegal immigrant, they're in violation of 8 USC, they know they're wrong, and they're still there. Right? So why is there a resource going to
obviously you have to kind of, let's cut out the politics of it. You're definitely not going to, even if you just give them basic survival of food, shelter, and medicine until you send them back to their country, it's still going to cost you money. No matter what way you dress up and put a ribbon on it, if you know what I mean.
But they weren't doing that. They were giving them a pretty good sum of money per month.
Oh yeah, they were given far beyond the basic. I'm just saying, still, this entire issue is going to cost you a lot of money. It's not good.
Across
It is
the
a way
country,
cheaper to build. It's a way cheaper to build a wall.
voters experiencing the masses of immigrants firsthand, displacing job markets, apartments, and overcrowding schools. And if you're struggling to make ends meet and then see your city spending tons of money on people who came uninvited from other countries, minds and changes votes.
We have homeless, we have veterans that we're concerned about. Our vets and our homeless in America need to be prioritized.
By the time the Biden administration realized the size of the political backlash, it was too late.
And that seems to be the thing they go to. Our veterans, our citizens, our people who need the resources, when it is obviously being taken from public coffers that the constituency has put in those coffers, trusting those politicians to spend the money in a reasonable way for the things that will improve the city, first responders, and other assets and resources.
There's only one problem with that. Most politicians are not very good at managing public resources. That goes, by the way, across all over the world. You can see them a mile away. And the sad thing is, I always feel sorry for, say, for a lot of the people who are struggling to make ends meet. It must be very, very heartbreaking, especially in these cities.
By mid-2023, 2/3 of Americans disapproved of his immigration policies. Immigration had shot up as a top voter concern, sometimes even overshadowing inflation. By June 2024, polls showed Americans trusted Trump over Biden on immigration by a 13-point margin, 44% to 31%. Overall, the fundamental mistakes the administration made? Listening to pro-immigration groups and their polls more than they should have, and just paying attention to the press that agreed with them. And that's a lesson we should all pay attention to, because the press is just partisan these days. The border wasn't just a short-term political problem.
The left and the right and the sources that cover them in that biased direction give you a very, very different thing. That's why we use Ground News, Epic Times, 1440, a lot of these things.
Very, very, as I was saying, even around this issue, this is probably the most balanced video we found around this issue. Because he's not taking a shot at either side. He's just pointing out the facts, figures. It is what it is. There's no hidden agenda, you could say.
He did really well. Get back to him.
Yes.
Biden inadvertently gave Donald Trump the perfect campaign weapon. Suddenly, Trump's message of controlled borders, which Democrats once mocked as fear-mongering, that started sounding pretty reasonable to everyday voters. And it helped hand Trump exactly the comeback opportunity he needed. It's a story very similar to what happened with the transgender movement. In my lifetime, I haven't seen any kind of social movement that rose in importance so quickly and then lost power so dramatically. It's a fascinating story.
So, anything for the good of the people, Patrick? This thing's gone on for quite a bit.
Yeah, we seem to. We're gonna a good bit over time, like our normal episode, like quite over time, like our normal episode. But it was a very, very balanced point of view that he put across. As I said, the figures might be fudged either side, but it is a massive issue no matter what way you dress it up and put a ribbon on, as they would say.
In closing, the extraction of resources by non-citizens to the citizens of any country is not an acceptable way to go. Having a fund to ensure that you can safely get them back to where they're coming from, and having a system where you can keep your people safe while you vet the process and ensure that your people are safe and your monies are safe and your structure is safe and all the things you need are good to go, at that point, then you can be magnanimous. But until all those things are in order, you just can't do that. You cannot have an immigration state and a welfare state at the same time.
Yes. Unfortunately, I think that goes through across all the G20 at the moment.
We're being nice to economic migrants. I feel it. All right. For Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things, and help us beat the algorithm. For the A&P Gents, and we are